Welcome back, everyone, to Tarot Journeys with Guy. How's everybody doing out there? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying the weekend. We're having a beautiful time here in the northern regions of Canada. Well, it's not so north. I mean, beautiful though. Beautiful. It's beautiful to see things come to life. We're a little bit behind most places, right? So anyway, so what's your week been like? My week has definitely been one of reading the signs and the messages and the guidance, and it's been very interesting. I've been going through a lot of like a creative output, right? So a lot of energy being put out. And it's kind of interesting what kind of comes back, I guess, in some ways, like reading the signs. Now, when I was getting all set up and I was flipping the cards around, and the death card popped out. Right? And that death card represents the transcendence factor, the transformation that is sort of taking place, right? It's this end of the old and the beginning of the new, the death of the old era and the beginning of this new era, or the preparation of the beginning, right? So that's what this period's been like. I mean, it is spring. So, and it is spring, definitely spring here. So it's like things are starting to sort of move, okay? Now, what people have been talking a lot about, I guess it has a lot to do with, well, I mean, what's going on in the world. It's such a crazy time that we live in, right? So much going on. A lot of talk about relationships. Actually, that's what this week has been for me, relationships. And not only that, human relationships, not only with themselves, like humans, one-on-one and groups, but the human relationship to the world, to the universe, to technology, to everything, right? Like it's been it's very philosophical, right? So in that is the discussion around AI and this sort of next push of the shift in what's going on with digital technology, information technology, online, social media, everything, and how that is going to be more and more inserted. And, it's going to be more and more challenging on how to determine what is real and what isn't. That's one thing. And then this other thing of like the avatar and the replacement boyfriend, girlfriend, placement lover kind of idea. And that's kind of startling. Or, the replacement of, and people interacting with the AI that is available, this public AI that, as if it is a human, as if it's an oracle, asking it questions, just like what we're doing with the cards. So really interesting. This is what we're moving into. In the world of Zoroaster, ancient Persian religion, and what Rudolf Steiner would talk about, harmonic forces, the dark side forces, okay? Rudolf Steiner, very prominent German spiritualist, theosophical thinker from Germany, from Switzerland, just before World War II. He would talk about that sort of idea of like the material world becoming more and more devoid of spirit, of divinity, and this sort of takeover of an anti-God or an anti-Christ, and how, and a lot of people talk about it sort of coming in the guise of technology, and we get into the book of Revelation and all that, but it, and that's what it makes me think of, right? It definitely is this part of the battle of the light and the dark, of the spirit and the material. Yeah, just accepting that is kind of a part, and we're seeing it play out. We're seeing it play out in society and stuff, and just that aside, that's the spiritual essence of it. But the ramifications in society that technology has, we're seeing it, right? The other thing people talking more and more about, and I'm glad that they are, is how there's a lot of mental illness around, there's a lot of reasons for it, but it's just the fact that there are a lot of people in the world, without help, they're sick. But part of it is on purpose. they're utilizing it. Those are the lines that they're pulling on. And this is what we're sort of dealing with. And this is where the spiritual side comes in. We're here to hold a part of it together, I guess, right? So, okay, let's get into this. What guidance do we need for the week ahead? What's going to happen in the world? What do we need to hear? What's going to help prepare us as per usual, right? And let's see what comes up. Okay, so interesting. We're definitely talking about like human relationships and the human, not only a human relationship to each other, to humans, their relationship to humans, but also humans' relationship to everything else, to the world, to its technology. Like those lines, those are what are being preyed upon. Okay, this is kind of this idea of freeing ourselves from our own conception. That's the devil card here. So it's funny, so we got two major arcanas, and this is leading into the future. Okay, and the major arcana, this is the major sort of like an energetic, archetypical lesson that we have to experience. Okay, and so these lines, all of these different lines of tension that this character pulls on, the devil card, but it's ultimately this lesson of liberating ourselves, freeing our minds, freeing our hearts from our own bonds, our own self-imposed bonds on the material world. Okay, so that's the thing. It's like they're playing tricks with us, they being the controllers and the deep state and to trick us, to confuse us. And that's kind of what this card's talking about, right? Is to sort of get us into a situation where we volunteer, where we accept all of this lunacy that they're pushing, right? And it's like every day it's something new, right? And so it's really important for people to tune in, not to tune out, not to drop out, right? So, and this is leading to this reversed tower card here, which the reversed card tower means like a change or something, an upheaval that is expected, that isn't unexpected. Okay. So this talks about false flag events, things that are triggered purposely to create the fall, which is what the tower represents, the destroying of something to rebuild so that there's newness. Okay. So, and that's kind of what we're dealing with here is this seemingly these events, right? And that we know now, and a lot of it, we're like talking about it, it's massive. People are so wise to this stuff, right? It's the other thing has flipped over where we have to navigate what is true and what isn't. And people, their willingness to believe anything now is difficult, right? So that's kind of a thing. That's what's coming up. The talk of that, bringing that up, seeing prominent people talking about this, and sort of messaging out that there are elements that are doing this. And so it's like people are cluing in. Some of our leaders are finally cluing in. Okay. And this is such a positive thing, right? And we have to sort of be on the guard of not being sort of swayed, I guess. They don't want us to move into this new era that is inevitable. Okay. They want us to move into their conception of that new era. And that's something that's really important. So interesting. What was it? Russia and China had an agreement. There's always these agreements, right? And talking about the multipolar world and creating a new world order using the existing order, but changing and sort of going along with the United Nations. And this is kind of what I've been talking about. vying factions, competing factions, trying to create this global order, this control thing. And when you start to nitpick and you look into it, they all kind of start to sound the same. And it's the same old ploy of the same old gang of cronies and deep staters and petty tyrants and dictators that want to implement this sort of these measures of control, and they don't want people to be free. Okay. So we know this. We already know this. We're already well acquainted. That's one example. Sort of sounds good on paper, but when you get into the fine print, it's not a good thing. But it is part of our world, part of what the devil card actually teaches us about the material world and how we are living in this time. Like, it really is this time where everything is turned on its head. It's inverted. And it, like, regardless of that state, we have to sort of accept it and be able to sort of like keep things stable and not turn it over, unless you want to be a part of the other side of it and be a lackey and inevitably probably, not good things happening to you if you go along with these guys, because ultimately they want a certain level of humanity gone. And yeah, it's like that's simple. Like, that's a thing, and it's happening. It's already happening. They've already triggered a lot of that, right? And that's going to be the mess of later to clean up. It's going to be the cleanup for later, right? So, yeah, a lot of people talking about it. I mean, these things have been triggered. Like there's been enough information that's coming out. Like, I mean, the thing with, like, it's all over. You name something, and there has been information released. It's been put out, right? In the public for us to see, right? So it's awesome. It's really good, right? It's a necessary part of it. Now, as a part of, like, and so it's so funny because the devil card automatically kind of puts me in a position where I think spiritual war and the real war and the real thing that usually isn't written about, usually isn't reported on, but yet here we are talking about it, right? And like, that's part of that dynamic, right? Where for me, it really comes down to, well, it is being broken down into these binaries, okay? Into this plus or minus, good or bad, black or white, you name it. You name whatever binary, whatever duality is there. Now, those dualities are necessary for spiritual advancement in the sense of the dual opposite is there to show us a part of the side of unity, because inevitably as a part of being in the physical world, we can't help but to be dual, our spiritual and physical nature. And that kind of idea, right? That's really important. So when you start to understand that, your nature becomes more unified and your approach becomes more unified. And that's sort of what's taking place. That's what our sort of position is in some ways. People that are picking up on this reading, or, and I mean, this is part of the spiritual lesson. This is part of what is part of our advancement. Okay. And so that is part of the message and the guidance so that we stay true to our calling, stay true to our course, our path when we're approaching some of this, because we may have to sort of face off with some of this. The way of the peaceful warrior, the way of the spiritual warrior, right? That's what this kind of talks about, where approaching our own personal dilemmas from within ourselves and realizing that really that's the front line of that spiritual battle. It's for the heart. It's in the heart. And to clear that spiritual warriorship is to end that battle within, right? And that line of division that's within us, that's one of the things that's one of the reins that they use to pull on us and to hook us. Okay. And you can see it in society. Yeah. You can see it. People you can see it. You can actually see it. Okay. So the system wants to shut everybody down. They all want us to be like happy little plebes where we just go along with whatever is being projected on us. And this can't hold. There's enough of us and there's enough people that don't want that are calling them out. And I think that's a big part of it. Now for us, part of this message is to sort of find our, like with the high priestess here, and to find our center and to find the silence within us, that peace within us, and to sit with that and to listen, to really listen to what the intuition is saying. Use your intuition like how people use fact checkers and this on the internet. You use your intuition. You hone that intuition, hone it so that you can hear the yes or the no. And the message that is there and the sign, like those little signs are pretty important. Yeah, they're pretty important. And so that's kind of what we're going to be facing, I guess. I mean, part of it is to sort of harmonize the world in so many ways, right? Yeah, because we were talking about human relationships and this idea of like the replacement for the human relationship through an avatar. And so and it's the same thing like with human populations and humans. Like you don't need to contrive humans being together to populate humans. Okay. This is something that humans, once they're given their allowance, they do it naturally. Okay. But it's this imposition of thought through social engineering that has sort of denied us a certain aspect of our humanity, where that's sort of being re-triggered, right? And like this thing with population, right? They're pushing this idea like, oh, the population is going to implode, and there's a big issue there. Yeah, it's one of these things that they tell us that it's very, like it's a huge problem, but like once the imposition, the problem is solved, once they realize what is causing it, it reverses itself very quickly. Okay. And I think with the whole idea of like the population and all that is another thing, kind of like the climate, where you see them actively lying to push this sort of agenda. Okay. I mean, there's the other part of it with, like with the identity politics and everything as well, right? But, and it's just like a lot of anti-human sentiment, like, these notions that have created these ideas are coming to the surface. Like people are starting to realize like where these things are coming from. Yeah, their system, this is the thing that we have to remember. Their system is falling apart. And what they want us to do is attach to the remnants of their system so that they can restart it. Okay. And that's not how it works. It's their system that's falling apart. The human system, the human field of consciousness, the human civilization is not finished at all. At all. We've got a long way to go. If you want to get into like the, civilization thing, where humanity is a very young civilization, let's say. Let's conceive of it as, I guess, maybe the age of, might be around that 7 to 10 year mark, because, right, this is the opportunity, especially in the human life, where we define our personhood. We start to think the world for ourselves. We start to see the world through our own eyes, right? And I think this is what humanity is approaching. But it could also be like shut down for a period of time, just like how throughout cycles of time, like through the dark ages of any sort of history in different parts of the world. Like, I mean, most cultures have experienced a dark age or that a period of lost knowledge, but it goes back even further to the lost civilization, the previous era of civilization before the flood era. Okay. So, one thing I've witnessed and even in the last few years, we've societally have slipped backwards. Like, and I think every day we kind of, if some of these things aren't checked, we keep slipping farther and farther backwards with, like, in society, especially in Western society with certain things. Now, that's not always true, but in certain notions, like, it's this idea of a controlled or a contrived degression, a stunting of our forward growth, of our volition, right? And this is what we're trying to stop. This is what we're getting in the way with these guys, all us humans awakening out there. Okay. Another major arcana. So the Sun card, that's a great one. Kind of interesting. This definitely represents that consciousness that I'm talking about. This is what some people could refer to as Christ consciousness. The enlightened consciousness, the initiated consciousness, the heightened state where we're achieving and receiving our inspiration and what's helping us sort of move through the world, right? And so that's kind of what's needed, right? It's like we need, like accessing that energy, accessing that higher self when it comes time to making certain decisions within the material world, like when it comes to work and working with others, building, taking on new projects or engaging in people in some way in the everyday world. Okay. And sort of accessing that sort of higher sense of self, because humanity, like the normal everyday vibration of humanity is being pulled, like this card here, the Two of Wands. Okay. We're being pulled apart. Now, us that are not are aware in a different way, like what I'm talking about, are kind of like having an opportunity to sort of step above or to sit above it, right? Where we can help sort of unify some of that energy and bring some of that energy together, where that power struggle doesn't have to be so much. And it's kind of offsetting some of their sort of notions of how things should have been. Like, man, they are off of their plan. They're 2 steps behind in a lot of ways. Like, a lot of things needed to be pushed forward, and they're sort of have triggered a lot of things, but these groups are no longer sort of organized and connected. They've sort of have broken off, and sort of like one of the objectives is to sort of offset the series of elections that are coming in the next couple of years. And so you start to see like the popular movements that you see with people, like that's kind of what's being pushed ahead. And in a lot of ways it's for the better, right? But yeah, they're trying to push this other thing and it's not really working. In fact, it's failing on all accounts. but yeah, they want to offset the elections. So in the next couple of years, but this election coming up in the States, there's big elections in Europe and in Canada coming up all over the world. In the next couple of years, next 2 years is going to be sort of a big tell of where humanity is moving. Okay. And this is where we come in. Our opportunity is to instill it with the light of consciousness, the light of and it's funny, they choose it as the inner child. Now, if you look at the card really closely, the sun card, and you look at the Fool, okay, so what you want to do is you take a look at the Fool, and it's like, that is the purest form of the Fool. He's wearing the feather of Ma'at, which is the goddess of truth and culture, but mostly truth, right? But it's this idea of the culture, and there's a lot of other symbols in there. I mean, the red flag of sacrifice is kind of like, that's what that kind of represents, right? And on the white charger, the white horse, the steed, the trusty steed. I mean, he's just like hanging out, the baby, the pure child within us, right? And that's what we're accessing. That's the closest part of us to divinity. So that's what they're trying to get at. And you can see how they've gotten at it with certain people, with groups of people, but they can't fully get at it with everybody. And you just can't in a lot of ways. I mean, for us that have access to it, that's a given, right? It's like accessing that knowing and utilizing it and to sort of move through what is being presented to us in such a way, instead of creating more duality, it's a unifying force. Okay? So I hope you guys enjoyed. So hit that like button and please leave a comment and subscribe if you haven't. And I hope to see you on the next one. Bye-bye.